Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unity of Las Vegas. I'm glad that you are joining us today. My name is Lee, and today we're going to be speaking about surrender. And in thinking about surrender, I am always drawn to the magic of fall. That's my absolute favorite time of the year. And as with many people, part of the allure of the beauty of fall are what's called the fall colors that are absolutely magnificent this time of year. And they are really known, these deciduous trees are really known for this exquisite beauty. There was even a thing called peak foliage weekend when I was growing up on the East Coast, where it was the perfect time of year to go and just to find the places where there were the absolute most beautiful colors and to go on hikes there or to rent a cabin there. And so, of course, what's very interesting about the fall is, well, first of all, it teaches us about surrender, that we can let the trees so beautifully let go of these leaves without any resistance whatsoever. And even though that we know that this is the foreshadowing of winter, so it's really kind of a celebration of death in a way if you think about it. But in this particular context, we see the beauty over what is actually happening. And then the beauty, of course, as I was mentioning, is that the trees don't resist. Like they don't, hold back and say, wait a minute, I don't want to move forward into winter. I want it to stay summer. So we can say that happens most of the time, except for this one time. You see, there was this little acorn many years ago, and he was hanging on the bough of a tree. He had a tender green cup and a beautifully carved saucer to hold it. The mother oak fed him with sweet sap every day, and the birds sang goodnight songs above him. The wind rocked him gently to and fro. The oak leaves made a soft green shade above him, so that the sun would not shine too warmly on his green cover. And this little acorn was just as happy as he could be. But the summer days were so bright and pleasant that the acorn never even expected anything but sunshine and an occasional shower to rinse the dust off of his leaves. But of course, as we know, summer does end and the autumn days come. So this green cup of the acorn turned into a brown cup. And it was well that it did, because it got stiffer and harder, for the cold winds began to blow. So the leaves turned from green to golden brown, and some of them were whisked away by the rough wind. The little acorn began to grow uneasy. "Isn't life all summer?" he said. "No," whispered Mother Oak. "The cold wind comes, and the leaves must go, and the acorns too. I must lose my little babies." "Oh, well, I could never leave this kind bough," said the frightened acorn. "I should be lost and forgotten if I should fall." And with that, he tried to cling at the tree even more closely, holding on with everything in him to the summer that he remembered, to the way things used to be. But at last, he was there all alone. Every single leaf had blown away to make a blanket for the brown acorns lying on the ground. So how many of us have really found ourselves in the position of the little acorn? And that really uncomfortable liminal space between a past that is falling away and an unknown future. It's a time when we might feel sure that life is happening to us against our will. Some imminent change is occurring and we haven't been consulted about it beforehand. There's a range of emotions and thoughts that we're experiencing at these times: fear, panic, anger, sadness. But inside of all of us, there's an invitation that's offered with a very soft voice, inviting us to surrender. You might consider surrender the S word, even though it has more than 4 syllables to it. Why in the world would we want to do that? Well, there's actually a myth, or actually 3 myths to surrender. And the first one is surrendering is giving up. We really find that giving up is quite different from surrender. Giving up is a turning away. It's a real way of embracing the limiting thoughts that are causing us fear. It's very disempowering. It's a way of staying asleep to the truth of what is actually happening in the situation. It's a way of supporting the status quo and keeping things exactly the way they are, affirming that you don't really want to consciously participate in change. Surrender, on the other hand, is turning towards possibilities that are lying within love's great mystery. And it's really an assurance or a knowingness of the goodness that is there, sight unseen. It's staying awake and participating in the creative process. It is being co-creative with the divine. So the second myth is that surrender only occurs when all else fails. Like if there's anything else possible that we could do, let's do that instead of surrendering. It's really as a last resort when we have no other choice. So surrender is designed to be a way of life, really, to live in no resistance to the falling away of what no longer serves us, and to know that whoever we were yesterday is already too small for our souls today. So we want to live like the cells in our body, dying off so new ones can be generated. There are 7.2 billion cells in the human body in perpetual surrender to the new. So the third myth is that surrender is weak. So surrender is actually one of the most powerful forms of human agency that there are, and definitely the highest expression of choice. It carries the potency of initiation, which is very deep transformation. You enter the initiation one way, and then you leave a totally different way. Surrender then acts as a portal or a threshold to a way of being beyond the intellect. So how do we do this thing called surrender? A lot of the times this feels like an almost impossible task. The real invitation here is to focus less on what is being surrendered, what you're letting go of, and focus more on who or what we are surrendering to. How are we holding in the eyes of our heart who or what we are surrendering ourselves to? The key here, of course, is faith and love. Through our faith, we can find love in places where the mind cannot. The mind fears the unknown, but faith projects love into mystery, into all possible futures. Faith has a potency to recenter us in the new being that we are becoming, and gives us the direct experience of love that requires no validation from the 3D world. So our affirmation today is, my surrendered heart takes rest in love's promise. There is a positive relationship between surrender and the love that's on the other side. This promise of love really pulls us towards itself and actually makes the surrender possible. So now there is a good and a bad time to surrender. So it's a bad time to surrender when you want to claim your limitations. It's a bad time to surrender when you want to continue to say, this is just the way I am, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And you want to keep saying these things over and over again. It's a bad time to surrender when you prefer to believe that the only way that you are looking at this situation is the true way. It's a bad time to surrender when you want to be right and are willing to be right at the expense of living in joy, peace, and wonder. So now it's a good time to surrender when you want to experience a universe that loves you at depth, always conspiring for your good on your behalf, a living grace, a love that's afforded freely that you don't have to earn. It's a good time to surrender when you want to feel vitally alive in every moment, when you want the freedom of living life dangerously, when you want to feel that the universe is safe enough to take a chance, to try new things, to play and be curious, to create a space for even more possibilities. When you want to live life as the miraculous and perpetual expectancy that something awesome is just about to happen beyond what you can fathom with your intellect. If this is what you are wanting, then it is a great time to surrender. But now let us return to our little friend the Acorn, who we last saw holding on for dear life. One night, Mother Oak whispered a message to the lonely Acorn. This tree is only your home for a time. It is not your true life. Your brown cover is only a shell for the true living plant you are inside. So let go, little acorn, and fall to the ground, and someday you will wake to a new and glorious life. I promise. The acorn listened and believed, for was not this tree his sheltering mother, who had loved him all of his life? So he bade farewell and loosened his hold, dropping to the ground. That night a high wind blew and covered him deep under a heap of oak leaves. Trickling streams from the hillside swept some earth over him, and the acorn was buried. But I shall wake again, said the acorn, and he fell fast asleep, resting in the promise of Mother Oak. Now, if you had walked through the woods that winter, you would have thought the little acorn was gone, for you wouldn't have been able to see the tender slumbering of this little life inside of him. Soon spring came and called to all the sleeping things underground to awaken and come forth, and the little acorn woke up. His brown shell, now of no use, had been lost in the ground. Spring began calling him upward. I am calling to you. Can you hear me? Within your heart there I speak. My voice rings true. You are urged beyond what has been. The time has come. Lay it to rest now. This ending comes as grace to free you from all that you have known, for what you have known is now too small for your soul. Allow me to show you the light that you are. I will unveil you to yourself, undressing your ego, casting aside its layers as tender as a lover. You shall know yourself in truth as a pure vessel stripped bare, ready for the divine revelation, as light, as life, as love. So up through the earth, the little acorn rose, a living plant, reaching up into the world of sunshine and beauty. There was the same green moss in the woods and the same singing brook. And there was Mother Oak. Yes, she said, you are now an oak tree, and this is your new and glorious life. This is your true life.